Alfalfalops! Here he is! Though incredibly dim-witted, alfalfalops have learned to gain control of their pollen now. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. All it wants to do is see suffering end, you know? We get enough of that already. Leave as little of a mark on the world as you can. Just relax. Have some grass. The name pulls from camelops again, that old llama camelopaca, which in a way makes it an alpha, a proto, an early build, a precursor to all of those things, hence the alpha in the name. And then alfalfa is a type of grass that is commonly fed to animals, such as domestic llamas and alpacas. The fluff on its neck and chest are sort of reminiscent of it. Its signature move, Fluff Buff, raises its defenses and evasiveness and fills the air with pollen, one of the new weather effects that I'll explain in the weather video. It's overall on the slower and lower attack side, because, you know, it's just chillin'. But it's also quite the tank, having high HP and defenses. Now, I mentioned that pampas grass is primarily found in South America, so we made the hump on this guy as shaped like the American pyramids. And the long leaves and ears on the back of its head are shaped like some Mayan and Aztec headpieces. But what are all these South American references doing in the Pacific Northwest? Well, as I'll explain in a later video, the lore, world building, and all that for the region revolves around a lot of migration and what we gain and lose due to it. But don't worry, it's not preachy trash. But a lot of new Pokemon immigrated to the region. Next up, Asphalt evolves into Tarmandoa. It's now a western ground snake mixed with a rubber boa, which then literally adds an extra layer of rubber on top of it. The name reflects this, as it ends with boa, and the rest of the name comes from tar, mend, which is what road snakes do, and tarmac, another type of road covering, like asphalt, which tends to be more resistant to scuffs and certain weather effects. Tarmandoa is incredibly fast, both above and below the ground, thanks to its propulsion system, and because of its heat, it forms lava tubes while digging. There are lava tubes all over this part of the world. They're neat, I've been in some. Its signature move, Thermal Vortex, has it spin its body towards the foe, creating a spinning and scorching blast of air that hits multiple enemies, and clears any weather conditions that are wet or cold. If there are none, it begins a drought. Overall, Tarmandoa is about its speed primarily. Its other stats are more or less equivalent. But with its evolution, its ability has been tweaked. Rather than simply being immune to rain and snow, it now also halves the damage it takes from water-type attacks. Meaning technically water-type attacks are still super effective on it, but it's ×2 instead of ×4. I mean, that rubber on its back makes it waterproof from that angle. And lastly, my personal favorite of the bunch, Spoutlaw evolves into Vaquamail. I had a hard time choosing between that name and Vaguamail. Which do you like better? Vaquamail? Vaguamail. Mail comes from Maelstrom, which is basically a giant oceanic whirlpool, because again, whirligig beetle, whirlpool, ha. And also, aqua is aquatic, and agua is Spanish for water, and vaquero is Spanish for cowboy. So when people think the Wild West, they don't usually think of the Pacific Northwest, but like, what do you think the Pacific Northwest was doing during that time period? Yeah, there were still cowboy stuff happening. They just had trees in the background. And seeing as this area was super close to Mexico before the Mexican-American War, and seeing that the Hispanic population here is sizable and still growing, I wanted to reference both in some way. So here's a whirligig vaquero, a lone wanderer, maybe even a sheriff. It always felt guilty pulling heists, but since it once lived as an outlaw, it now knows how they think, making them even better fighters for justice. Their water whip attacks are near unseen, and they can even use that same water whip to form a lasso whirlpool to entrap their enemies. Which brings us to the signature move, Whirl Duel. It whips up a whirlpool, a maelstrom, and launches it at the enemy, which deals damage, traps them in a whirlpool for 3 to 5 turns, and starts a rainstorm. I freaking love this mon! The hat, the pose, the cowl! Ooh! Vaquamail is a bit of a glass cannon, referencing those Wild West duels. It can deal a lot of damage with its high attack and special attack and high speed, but its HP and defenses aren't great. And in case you didn't notice, the 3 of them are all immune to their weakness's weather effect. Alfalfalops fills the air with pollen, but Vaquamail is immune to air quality changes. Vaquamail causes rain, but Tarmandoa is just immune to rain. And Tarmandoa causes droughts, but Alfalfalops is immune to temperature-related weather. So that's cool. Technically, overall though, the type triangle is still not perfect. The bug on Vaquamail makes fire balance out on it and gives it an advantage over Alfalfalops, But it's not like the official triangles are all perfect, you know? Also, as a set, the evolutions all have some theming in and of themselves. For example, Vaquamel, Spoutlaw, and Burbwhirl. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The classic Western movie turned saying or trope. We have the hero, an outlaw, and an ugly baby. Thurple, Asphalt, and Tarmandoa, it's stop, drop, and roll. You know, the fire safety thing. Smokey Bear is an American icon. Thurple gets scared and freezes in its track. Asphalt drops deep underground, and Tarmandoa is a constrictor whose signature move has it roll around, forming a vortex of heat. And then, honestly, the weakest of the three, Lumpus, Danfluff, and Alfalfalops are the three types of triangles. Because pyramids. Triangles. Yeah? Alfalfalops is obtuse, because it's dumb. The other definition of obtuse. Danfluff is pretty chill and sees everything and everyone equally. It's an equilateral triangle. And Lumpus is acute. Because it's cute. It's really dumb, but that's what we came up with. So, I'd like to know what you think. Given the choice, which of these three would you pick as your starter? Or would you just take one because you have to and then box it once you can because no Pokemon since the generation you played when you were 12 has been good? Let me know down in the comments. These took a lot of work, not just on the artist's parts, but also in coming up with everything. It takes a surprising amount of research trying to fit all these pieces together well enough. So big props to Game Freak and the Pokemon Company who have to consider all of this and even more, like global cultural acceptance, marketability, and how they would utilize their budget when animating them in the anime and what they sound like, etc. They have a big job, and I've definitely got more respect for it now. But we ain't anywhere near